Hi everyone, this is Mary Nipa. So in this video lecture, we are going to see about friend function and friend class in C++. So first of all, you all know about the meaning of friend. So friends, we share some personal problems with our friends. We share some all our feelings with our friends. So just like friend function also, it's very close to the class as well as to other classes. So in this video, we are going to see about friend function and the friend function used in a particular class and how this friend function is related to another class. So we'll see one by one. So this is what is this friend function and why we are just going for friend function. Suppose just think that we are having class A as well as class B. Class A has private members, similarly class B have private members. So but the class A is different, class B is different. It's not inherited also. So in this case, so class B does not have permission to access the private members of class A. So a private member cannot be accessed from outside the class. So similarly, and in class A or the class A holding, the program holding class A has non-member functions also. So what is the difference between member function and non-member function? Member function means it is the function within the class. Non-member function means it's a function outside the class, maybe globally declared or declared in the main function. Even those non-member functions also have no access to the private members of class A or similarly for class B. So mutually there is no access between the two classes. So this is very difficult task. So if you want to share some common functions, it's a problem. So in this case, we are using in that cases or in that situation where we want to handle some common functions between the two classes, we are going for friend function. So this friend function has some capacity to handle some specific tasks like objects in a class. So how we'll see about the declaration of this friend function. So friend function is in a class we have private members as well as public members. So under the public members we write all the functions. So under that function we can declare more than one function to be friend. So similarly two classes can also share common friend function. So here we are using the friend keyword to declare the friend function. So this is the declaration. So we have class A. So under that we have private members. So the private members I have not listed. Under public you have the function. So here friend void B is here the B is the function name and we have to declare the class inside. So this is the syntax for friend function and it has some characteristics. So it can be declared in any number of classes. So we can use a common function. Common function can be declared as friend function in more than one classes. And it has full access. So if we have just a friend function means it has full access to the private members of the friend class. And it cannot be called, it's a very important point is, it cannot be called by the objects of the class. Normally, normal member functions we used to call by the objects of the class. We used to create an object for the class name, and then we used to call using that object. But this is very important. Friend function cannot be called by using the objects of the class. And it cannot be, so if it is not called means we know that it cannot be invoked by an object. So can be invoked normally without any object. So how we call it? So how we call it means we can pass the object as arguments to the friend function. This line is very, very important. So we can pass the arguments to the friend function. So we can use this object name and dot operator like a dot x, where a is the class name and x is the object name. So you can use this access method to call the friend function. And it has objects as arguments. As we have declared, it has an objects as arguments. So from this slide, it's very clear. Two important points are very important. That is, it cannot be called by the objects. It cannot be invoked by the objects. But we can pass the objects as arguments into the friend functions. So we'll see a simple example here. So just to see here. So I'm taking a class. Class name is A. So in the class name we have private variables as well as the public member functions. So under private variables, we have declared an integer and a character. So and then under public, I have declared one function disk. So that function is a friend function and it has return type void. So in the argument, I am passing the object of the class A. So come back to the main function. Come down to the main function int main A obj. What's the meaning of that? Obj is an object of class A. Now you see, you are calling the disk function. So normally, how will you call the disk function? Using object obj.disp. But this disp is declared as a friend function here. As I said before, friend functions should not be called by objects. That are the two thumb rules of friend function. It cannot be called by object. Similarly, it can the friend function we can pass only the argument. We can pass the objects as arguments to the friend function. So since it cannot be called by the object, so we are just calling like this, disp of obj. This obj is the object and we are passing this obj as arguments to the friend function. So when we call this, the compiler directly goes to the friend function, friend void disk, and it comes to the declaration part. It is globally declared outside. So in the declaration part also, the declaration and the definition part which is globally defined outside. So in the definition you see here cout obj.n. So using this, since it is a friend function, it is friend to the class A. So it can access all the data variables of the class A. So obj.n means it can access 100. It can obj.ch means it can access the value of ch. So the value of ch is A here. Okay. So what is our output? So when we call the disp function, disp of obj, so it goes to the disp function and it displays 100 and A. That's the output screen is shown on the right. So in this way we have to call it. In the same program, if we just instead of disp of obj, if we just give obj.disp means you will get error because friend function cannot be called by using objects. We can pass the object as arguments to the friend function, but it cannot be called by using objects. So we'll see one more example here. Friend function of the same class. So far we are seeing how we are using the friend function within the same class. Okay. So here we are just having one class A, and under private I have not declared the variables int a comma b as private. If you want to declare, you can declare. So but by default we can will take it as the public status it takes. So int a comma b. Under public you have first two functions. First function is void set data. That means here that the value is set as already it's set as a equal to 20, b equal to 40. Then another one simple function. That function is for calculating the mean. So that is a friend function. I have declared that function as a friend function. That is friend float. Float is the data type. Mean is the function name, and I am passing this function. This is the syntax. So we have to pass the object as argument. So A is class name. S is the object of the class A. So if it just, since it's an object-oriented programming language, so we can use any variables, but it takes the specific meaning for that. Since S is behind A, so it takes S is the object of class A. Then you see we are just calculating S dot A plus S dot B divided by 2. We are just calculating the mean of two numbers. And how we are accessing it? Using this objects. So it has full right to access the data variables. So this function has full right. If you just remove the friend keyword and if you just execute this program, you will get again error, because what error you will get means this function cannot be able to access the variables. But since it's a friend function, it can access the private variables of the class. So then we are just coming to the main function. You all know that A is the class name here. A space X means X is the object of class A. Then we are accessing the first function. Here we have two functions, set data as well as the mean. So we are accessing the first function using the object x dot set data. And second function, you see how we are accessing it? Mean. Mean is a friend function. So we can't access using object. So we are just accessing by passing the object as argument. So mean of x. Then it's returned 0. Okay. So this is what how we access it. So When you call this function, you'll get the output as x dot set data, means it comes to the set data and it sets the value of a as 20 and b as 40. And next, if you call the mean function, it goes directly to the mean function, calculates 40 plus 20 divided by 2 and you'll get the corresponding value. Next, so far we have seen how to use the friend function within the same class. How the function is getting the right to access the private members of within the class. Now we'll see friend class. That is, friend class means how one class becomes friend to another class, or how we can link one class to another class. So here also there are two methods. See, a class has, so assume that we have two classes, class A, class B. So the class A have different functions. Similarly, the class B have different functions. So we can assume, there are two methods. We can either assume one or two functions to be the friend function, or we can take all the functions to be friend function of another class. So first I am taking here, consider a program here that is class A. So in that, int function 1. So this function is not a friend function, it's a normal member function. Consider another class. So in this I am taking one function, int, that is that is A is a friend of B. So here this function is a friend function of B, that is fun1. So int A, so we are just taking another function. So in this class, this function is a friend function of B. So this here also we have this function 1. So this, say in the class B have a function. So that is a friend of the class A. Okay, so this we are accessing using scope resolution operator. So member functions of one class can be a friend function of another class. So what is the declaration? Then we will see the second case then between two classes. So instead of making one function as friend, so we can make the whole functions of another class to be friend. So that's also possible. That is called friend classes. So can declare all the member functions of one class as the friend function of another class. So assume that you have a class A. So under that we have the syntax friend class B. The meaning is that class B is class A is a friend of class B. So all members functions of B are friend of A. So we'll see simple example program in this. So we have two classes, class X above and below we have class A. Then we have written the main function. For class X, we have two variables under private and one function, that is friend function. So friend class A. So under X, we have a function. That function is a friend of another class A. So the class A we have written in the next, that is, in that we have only one function, void disp. So void disp means disp is a function. So that disp is a function. So this we are just taking the normal variables, so obj.ch, obj.now. So you see, coming to the main function, we are creating objects separately. A obj, that is obj is the object of class A. X obj2, obj2 is the object of class X. So disp, see, just we are accessing disp using, so since disp is the function in the class A, so we are just accessing, that is not a friend function. So we are just accessing obj.disp of obj2 because we have passed the object into the function. So we are just calling normally. But since the function is not, since the whole class is a friend of another class, we are calling it like this. So it's a very simple syntax. We have to use friend class A. That means that all the member functions of class A are friend of class B. So since all the member functions are friend of class not B, class X. So since all the member functions are friend of class X, so it can access all the data variables of class X. So class A can access all the data variables of class X. That is why without any mistakes, so without any dilemmas, we are just taking obj.ch or obj.now. Finally, so if we just display, it goes to the disp function and it takes the character A and a number 11. So this is all about the friend function. So if we have, we'll see some more example programs in my next video. Thank you for watching.